8 years in prison and possible deportation. That's what the driver at the center of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash faced after pleading guilty to 29 counts of dangerous driving causing death or bodily injury. As a permanent resident, not a citizen of Canada, Jaskirat Singh Sidhu may have to leave the country after serving his sentence. His Calgary lawyer, Michael Green, wants to prevent that deportation and joins me now. Thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here.
So how did you get involved in this case?
I was approached by family and friends who were concerned about what was going to happen with the immigration process after he was sentenced.
Why should Mr. Sidhu be allowed to stay in Canada?
It's going to be a really difficult decision that needs to be made. There's a process that has to be followed, and in his case, he has some compelling arguments. The whole purpose of the exercise is about protecting the security of Canada. And so they have to do this exercise to say, well, how serious was his crime? What's his criminal background? What's his remorse, his rehabilitation? What kind of support does he have here? All these factors get weighed in the balance, and he scores pretty well on those. I mean, albeit what makes it so difficult is the catastrophic nature of the consequences of his offense, not the nature of the offense itself, in the sense that it was not premeditated, it wasn't intentional, it was a momentary mistake that he made, but the consequences are great. But otherwise, he's a pretty good guy. He's got no criminality, he's well educated, he speaks fluent English, he's adapted well to Canada in the several years that he's lived here. His wife has adapted well, and she's well established here. He has a good support group, and there's nobody in the system or anywhere that's saying that he's a likelihood to reoffend. And as anybody who followed this case during the sentencing knows that he accepted full responsibility, and he couldn't possibly have been more remorseful.
Do you believe there is support for him to stay in this country?
Well, certainly we've been hearing it. There was a columnist for the National Post who wrote an article questioning the sentence he received as being too overly severe, and got tremendous positive feedback. And usually you get negative feedback, especially anything involving immigrants. I find that the comment section is usually too painful to read. But in this case, there was a lot of support, and a lot of those people have written letters of support. So, there's some people who feel there's no point making him the next victim of that incident, that he's already been punished enough, and it's time to let him get on with his life.
What about the families of the people who died?
Well, there's mixed feelings there from what I understand. There will be some people who this will just open up old wounds, and for them, there can never be a harsh enough consequence for Mr. Sidhu. Even the death penalty would be insufficient to erase the pain that they've suffered. But there's others who've come forward with messages of forgiveness, and there's one couple that came forward and said that they felt their son was coming back to them to say, you have to forgive him and get on with your lives. So I think there'll be a range, just like there's a whole range of people out there on their views, and I'm sure that some Canadians will feel one way and some will feel another.
What are you doing now when it comes to his potential deportation?
So it used to be that any permanent resident who was convicted of a serious offense would get a hearing in front of the Immigration Appeal Division to show humanitarian reasons why they shouldn't be deported. That hearing was replaced for people who got a more severe sentence. It used to be if you got over 2 years, you lost your right of appeal. Now it's if you get over 6 months sentence, you lose your right of appeal. So he has no right of appeal, but the process, when they eliminated the right of appeal, the process they introduced was that you would make your case to a delegate of the minister, which is a frontline immigration enforcement officer. And that person will make a recommendation to their boss, and their boss will decide the fate of, in this case, Mr. Sidhu, based on the submissions that we make and the submissions that the officer makes.
Calgary lawyer Michael Green, thanks so much for your time.
You're most welcome.